It's true. And I'm not wearing it tonight. Thank you, Marsha. When she asked me to come, she said 2016, and that was a long time ago, and it's June tomorrow. Oh my God. Half the year's gone, and I haven't done any of my New Year's resolutions, which is great. This is a story. Free Rico. The lineup at the Kentucky Fried Chicken at the corner of Church and Wellesley was as long as if it was deep. Now, I was standing there, and now I was known not to be a fan of the KFC. When they opened the KFC at the corner of Borden and College years and years ago, and I lived upstairs, and the chimneys were virtually in my window of my room, I went to Honest Ed's, got a Colonel Sanders piggy bank, and I hanged it on the news outside in protest. So I didn't like KFC that much, but I was there that day because I was in a secret mission. You see, period 4 at my school, students had been disappearing, and we didn't know why. So one day I followed them, and this is where they were at the lineup of the Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was Toonie Tuesdays, and they were all leaving for period 4. So one of them recognized me. He says, "Rico, what are you doing here?" And pretty much all of them looked at me and they thought I was in trouble. And I said, no, get your food. I'm not about to tell 40 or 50 teenagers not to eat their food and come back with me to school. I'd be lynched. So I said, after lunch, just come with me and we'll talk about this. Now, I worked for a school called Contact Alternative School. It was like the kids said, it's second chance high. It was more like fifth chance high for them. I told them the truth. And we did a lot of stuff for them. And if you were ready to really make a change in your life, that was the school to be. We took all kinds of kids from all walks of life, street-involved youth, kids from Roseville that couldn't get up in the morning and were failing miserably at whatever school they were going, Jarvis or whatever. And we took them. We took kids from Regent Park. We took kids who had kids. We took black kids. We took white kids. We took Asian kids. We took Latino kids. We took everybody into our school and just helped them out with kind of recovering and making sure that they will get credits and go back to a regular school or maybe go to college or whatever. So when we came back to the school, we had an assembly. It was a democratic school where the teachers and the students got together and we made all our decisions democratically, and we chatted about period 4. Why are you leaving every time in period 4 on Tuesday? And they said, well, although you provide food here at the school, KFC is kind of like fun, and $2, who can beat that? So what we decided was that we were going to get together, and every week a classroom will cook for the school. Well, that week that classroom will collect the toonies from the students, and they will go and get all the KFC into the school. Even the teachers got involved into this. I have to say I didn't like the KFC, but they all did, and we solved that kind of problem. Now we had moved to a building on Church Street by Gloucester, and there was a Hasty Market downstairs. Now, one day I was leaving the school. The owner of the Hasty Market came out to me and said, your students are stealing from me. They're stealing, ruining my business. They're shoplifting. And I said, hey, why don't we talk about this? And so I thought about it, and then the next day I came and I said, look, all their students have ID with their photograph, name of the school, give them 10% off when they come into your school. He says, no, you're going to ruin my business even more. And I said, just trust me. You give them 10%, those kids are going to love you. They're going to come back and keep coming back. Shoplifting is going to go down because they're going to police it themselves. You'll just see. Try it for a week. He tried for a week. At the end of the week, he came and said, man, so much business, no shoplifting. See, we worked with the kids. We tried every single thing that we could do with these kids to make them stay at the school, give them what they needed, and just, instead of working against them, work with them and come up with solutions to the problems. Now, many of you might have used a student Metro Pass, your young crowd. You must have used a student Metro Pass. There was no student Metro Pass years and years ago. We developed a course at the school because one of the students said, how come there's an adult Metro Pass and adult tickets and there's student tickets but no student Metro Pass? That is discrimination. So in the oral communication class that we had for English, they developed a whole scheme to take the TTC to court and charging discrimination against young people because there was no student Metro Pass. And actually they hired a lawyer pro bono, and they took the TTC to court, and the TTC capitulated, and that's why there's a student Metro Pass, thanks to Contact School. So I tell you, my title, My title was street worker. And because we actually, well, not that kind. We actually, although nothing wrong with them, some of my best friends, we walked the streets and recruited kids from when Young Street used to be Young Street and Harbor used to be Harbor before it got all gentrified and all those nice little shishi restaurants and scooteries and places like that. I was once threatened by a student saying, "Don't recruit my people. They're part of my group." He had a knife in his hand. I said, "Okay, no problem." But you know what? This is the work that we did, and we helped them out incredibly. I remember John. John came to my school. He was 16 years old, and they say by 16 you should have 16 credits, more or less, out of the 30 or 34 you should be getting. John came with like about 3 or 4 credits. I think 3 of them were in phys ed. And he told me, "I'm a real fuck up. I can't do anything." Now, you know what? He had a lot of street experience. And I told him, "Well, why don't you start with a street law class that we have developed?" And you know what? At that time, in Toronto, much like now, a black man had been shot and killed by the police. And we were actually studying police brutality. And he was an expert at this because he had been living in shelters and moving from one place to the other, going in jail and out of jail. And he had a lot of experience in this situation. And he was actually a really great resource in terms of the course. We actually heard that there was going to be a demonstration at City Hall by Dudley Laws, from Bad C, the Black Action Defense Committee, Charles Roach, Lillian Allen was going to be there, that poet, and there was going to be this demonstration against the police. With a field trip right away, we went there and we learned a lot right as it was happening. And this is the great thing about that school. We just took everything that was happening right at the moment. And this is before internet, before cell phones. I don't know how we found this stuff out. We communicated and the information came to us and we disseminated to the students and empowered them. Now, John was he was a bit of a hard case, but I was working with him and he was doing really well. He started getting credits and started feeling better about himself. And I got worried one day when this new kid called Mike, he was a really big, tall, black kid, came into the school. I guess he was about 20 years old, and John was 16, and I wasn't sure about this relationship. And also, Mike was really tough. Mike wasn't buying into the program. Mike wasn't really letting us work with him. I would sit him down and try to talk to him and try to suggest, this or that or the other or this course. He was like just sitting there, not doing much. And I didn't like him hanging around with John as much. But John kind of got enamored with him and didn't stop hanging out with him. Mike, I know, was a thief, but I couldn't prove it. A lot of students came to me and said, "There's even some robberies," and every time he's around, there's a robbery. One day, the purse of a popular supply teacher was stolen. And this is when the kids got irate, and they came in and they just snitched, really. They told me, "He did it, we saw him." I confronted him. He denied it, rotundly denied it, and we couldn't find the purse anywhere. Another time, there was a report that he had gone into the kitchen where we were cooking for the students, and he had grabbed some ham and just ate it and threw it in the garbage. When I confronted him about it, and I said, "You having issues? Like, do you need money? What do you need? We can help you." He didn't care. When I realized that he was really, really high, I said, "Hey, man, we offer a course here on how to alternatively get high. We do drumming, we do meditation, we do yoga." Before all that stuff was cool, really. And he didn't bite. He just was a hard nut to crack, and I wasn't getting anywhere with him. And he was annoying, and we thought, there's some people that need to hit rock bottom, and we actually asked students to leave. And I was just about to ask him to leave. Now, one Friday afternoon, around 3, no, it would have been more. It would have been like 5 o'clock. It was almost time to go home. John showed up at my desk, and he said, "I need to talk to you." He looked visibly upset. And he told me that him and Mike had gone down to Jarvis Collegiate, and then Mike had seen a kid with a Walkman, and he had rolled them for it and stole it and beat up the kid. And he said, that was not the right thing to do. I'm here to tell you this happened, and I'm part of it, and I need to do something about it. And I said, "Well, what is the right thing to do?" He says, "I need to turn myself in. I was part of a crime. I don't like it." Now, he lived with foster parents, so we called the foster parents. He was 16. If he was going to turn himself in, he needed to go with the parents. If you're a young offender, you need to go with parents. And so he went. He went to the police station. I know he went on the weekend. The parents came, picked him up, and I said, "Well, I'll talk to you on Monday." On Monday morning, I came into school, and like every morning I would do attendance. I did the attendance, and then I had about 15 or 20 kids that I phoned every morning, woke them up, tried to get them to school, entice them with whatever. And I was called from the office. The coordinator of the school was a teacher, said to me, there are some officers here that want to speak to you. So I went down to the office, and they were there. There were 2 police officers, and one was bigger than the other. They were like triple the size of me, and I looked up, and I could feel the atmosphere was charged. And the one cop looked at me and goes, so you're the guy? And I said, oh, hi, yes, I'm Rico, hi. And he said, no, you've been obstructing justice, buddy. I said, how so? Well, you tip off the other kid, and he came and told us, tip off the other kid. I told him to turn himself. In fact, he was the one who wanted to turn himself in. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, well, you've been obstructing justice. We don't like it. We're going to go upstairs and try to get that guy, whatever that guy. I said, do you even know his name? No, but we just know he's tall, he's black, and wears a baseball cap. And I said, you know how many kids like that I have in this school? You can't go up there. So I really blocked him. And he kept being intimidating to the point where the female teacher was a coordinator, said, look, my father's a police officer, my brother's a police officer, and I have never felt so intimidated in my life. And he said, what have you done wrong that you feel intimidated? He was a real piece of work, that guy, I tell you. Anyways, I told him that I would get him for them when he arrived. I said, I do attendance every morning. He's not here. So when he arrives, I'll bring him down. And sometimes you have to do tough things. I'm not too friendly with that situation, but I knew I had to do it. When he arrived, he came to see me. They had to check in the morning with me. And I said, we need to go to the office. I took him to the office, took him there with the police officers. They started questioning him. At some point, when I was talking to the secretary, I see them leaving. And the secretary checks, and she says, he's really tall. He looks really old, but he's really 16. So the secretary says, I'm going to call his mom. And I went outside to stand outside with the police officers to tell them I'm going to be with him as a trusted adult until parents arrive. And that's the law. That was a young offender act at the time. It is still today. And the police officer that was so bad one, I told him that I was going to be there and support him until parents showed up. And the other cop, the one that was really bad, the bad cop, put him this. He's the bad cop. He looked at me and says, "The fuck are you doing here? You're obstructing justice again." And I looked at him, there's no need for that language. I have students here. They're outside. They were smoking or doing whatever, hanging out. So you don't need to talk to me like that. And he goes, look, if you don't leave, buddy, right now, I'm going to do something to you. And I said, I'm sorry, officer. I'm standing here like an officer of the school board. You're an officer of the law. We're working together. I will stay here until mother arrives, or you tell me where you're taking him and I'll follow you. I'm just going to stay here silently. And he said, if you don't leave, you're going to get it. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm doing my job. You're doing yours. Just let it go. Before I knew it, my glasses flew that way. My arm was almost up at my head. I was on the floor, his knee on my back, and he kept saying, don't resist me, don't resist me. And I said, just don't break my arm, please. He kept saying, don't resist me, you're resisting arrest. And I said, I'm not doing anything, I just don't want you to break my arm. I was on the floor, my face was rubbing the pavement there. Meanwhile, I could see that the kid was being handcuffed by the other officer. All the students went inside to tell them what the teachers and the other student was happening. About 3 teachers came out, the secretary came out, yelled at them, called them racist cops, what are you doing, racist cops? Mike was taken away almost immediately. I stood on front of the school in Church in Gloucester, handcuffed for 45 minutes before they brought a cruiser to get me. Now, I was a little worried. Not so much because I was embarrassed, really. My mom had just moved up the street, and I was afraid that she might be walking down to get a coffee at the second cup there with the steps. And I was really worried about that, to the point where I told a friend of mine who passed by, if you see my mom coming by, take her to the other place to drink coffee. And he said, what happened? And I had to kind of tell him the story, and a couple other teachers came out. I had to tell them to go back inside because they were worse than I had been. I had not been worse at all. I had just stood there, and the guy took me. So I thought they were going to be coming with me. The cruiser arrived 45 minutes later. At this point, I was worried about what's going to happen. I was worried about my life, really, in many ways. I sat down, and there he shot my head in, and they took me to 51 Division on Regent Street. Back in the day, it was there, Regent Park. And they took me off the cruiser, and they didn't take the handcuffs off. And as we were walking in to get booked, he kept elbowing me. And I said, oh, honey, there's a camera there. I'm ready for my close-up, and so are you. That's all I could say to him. I was booked. I was taken upstairs, handcuffs off. I was put into a room that was, if you use the washrooms, you'll see they're a little smaller than those cubicles in the back. And I was there for about 45 minutes incommunicado. And I was reflecting. I was scared. I was thirsty. I was kind of freaking out, but trying to let it get to me. But I was wondering, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose my job? No, but there were kids out there. They saw what happened. Are they going to lie? And all of a sudden, about 45 minutes later to an hour later, I get a knock on the door, and then this sergeant comes in. And he was kind of funny and friendly at first, and then he stopped being funny and friendly a few minutes later when I told him what I thought. But he said to me, "Man, you're here for some serious charges, resisting arrest, insulting a police officer, obstruction of justice." And he went a litany of charges. And I said, "Well, you didn't pile up, man. I'm a small guy. I'm not crazy. I have a reputation. For one thing, nobody's going to believe you. I try to attack that massive guy. And for the other, I want you to think about your superintendent at the station. The school used to be, my school, Contact, used to be right on Regent Park. And I was a member of the police community committee. And I knew the superintendent. And when I dropped that name, he looked at me and goes, "Well, how do you know him?" And I go, "Well, I'm part of the committee. I have a reputation. You guys are going to look really bad. You should just let me go right now and it'll be over." And he closed the door. And I was there for another, more or less, about an hour. Again, freaking out this time, not knowing what to do. I wanted to talk to a lawyer. They gave me a phone. I told my lawyer he was out of town. And I didn't want to call my family. I didn't want to call my partner. I didn't want to call anybody. Although the school had phoned everybody for me. The people they were phoning at the station, and they were not letting the calls go through. My partner said, "I'm his partner." I said, "Partners in what? Business?" "No, I fuck him," he said. And I was playing macho, I was playing real macho. And then they came, and now they said, "Well, we have to go through some protocol here and some procedures." And the good cop came, and he said, "Well, okay, step with me into this room." And they said, "So what's the protocol?" He says, "Well, first of all, we have to strip search you." "Strip search for what?" "Well, you could having knives and blades and where? My ass?" I said, "Where?" He says, "Yeah, well, you have to do it." "Well, there you go. Here, undress me." And he was wearing gloves, and "Well, you have to do that." And I said, "Well, no, you have to do it." And then I realized, okay, so I had to strip search for the guy, and he checked me, and I had to kind of bend over a little bit. "Oh, oh, want to check further?" Anyways, I tried to not to be too crude with him because he was a nice cop after all. But anyways, I was left there again for another maybe 40 minutes. And they told me they had to do some paperwork and they would let me go. But it was taking too long. And I was sitting in that little room, now again, reflecting what was going to happen. Am I going to be fired? Am I going to be believed? They will believe the cops. Am I going to spend the night here? I hope they haven't told my mom. So I heard a roar outside. And it was getting louder and louder and louder. And I could hear the word, "Rico, Rico." And I was, "Oh my God." And I said, and then all of a sudden the sergeant opens the door and says, and I could hear them, all the detectives are looking out the window and say, "How many are there? How many?" Look. And one of them said, "Should I call the SWAT team?" And I said, "No, SWAT, just wait a minute." And I realized it was my students. The crazy kids have come up to the school with placards. I didn't know that, but they were saying, "Free Rico, free Rico, free Rico, free Rico." Oh my God. And I was like, oh, wow, that was incredible. I was like, and I told the sergeant, "Listen, you know what? Let me go. I'll take them with me. You don't need a SWAT team. Save money to the taxpayers. Use it for when you need to. I'll take them with me. Just let me go. Let me go." "Well, we still have to charge you, and we still have to do paperwork." "Well, speed it up. I'll take them away." And they were outside. They were chanting and screaming, "He's innocent, racist cops." And they were going crazy outside. And I was feeling amazing. I tell you, it was a great feeling. I was feeling as tall as that big, tall cop. I don't want to say him. And so I'm standing there, and they sped up the work. They made me sign papers that I was going to appear in court. I was going to come back for my mug shot and my fingerprints and all this stuff. So I had to sign all this stuff. And then they took me downstairs, and the sergeant said, "Well, I hope you'll be in charge of obstruction of justice. Well, I guess you all have to see you in court." And I said, "Well, whatever." I said, "You're going to lose, you know that." So he opened the door and let me out, and there's a sea of students of mine with placards that say "Free Rico," "He's innocent," "Let him go," "Racist cops." They had created all this in an art class for which they got credit. I made sure they got credit. Not only that, they had called City TV, who, as I was coming out, one of their microphones shot into my face. How was it in there? I wasn't fine. Extra, from the Extra newspaper, the print edition now is online. They had come to interview me. They asked if they could have an interview with me. But I said, well, I made a little speech thanking them for coming. And then I said, we have to go. I promised them we were going to leave. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay and bring the police station down. They were ready. And I said, no. We have to go. So we marched back all the way from Regent Park Parliament in Dundas, all the way to Church and Wellesley, went to the school. I was given a kind of like a hero's welcome by the teachers and the rest of the students that were there. And then I was told, oh, you have to call the principal, by the way. And that's when I fled and I went to a restaurant by myself. I was exhausted. I was thirsty. I was hungry. I had a sandwich. And then I thought, wow, what a day. I was scared. I was frightened. But I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone to face what came later. I knew my students had my back. Thank you.
Rico Rodriguez!